Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another pre-recorded lesson video. Today, we are going over lesson 23. We are almost done. I think there's only 7 school days left until spring break. Let's finish out strong because next week is when final grades are due for report cards, right? So only a couple more grades left. Let's finish strong. Big announcement, if you have not done your 3-week major test yet, please get that done, because that will be the only major grade of this 9 weeks. And if you take a 0 on it, you're not going to pass, right? So please get that done. And if you're unsure of whether you've done it or not, just message me and I'll check for you, okay? Or you can just check your Schoology grades on our course homepage. And if it's blank for that test, then you probably have not done it, okay? So let's get started with a quick review over what is happening in the play so far. I think this review is going to be a little bit important because we haven't really read the play in like 2 weeks, right? So a quick review: Nick Bottom, or just Bottom, has been turned into a man with a donkey head by Robin Goodfellow, and Titania, the queen of the fairies, Oberyn's wife, is in love with Bottom, right? Because of the power of the flower, that love potion that they have, okay? Helena is now being pursued romantically by Lysander and Demetrius, again, because of that love potion from that magical flower. But Helena is very upset. She thinks that they're playing a joke or a prank on her, so she's upset. And she thinks Hermia is the reason behind that prank. She thinks Hermia is like the mastermind, so they're sort of beefing now, okay? And nobody loves Hermia now because Lysander's in love with Helen now because of that flower, okay? So just a quick rundown over Act 3. Eventually, we're going to do Act 4 and Act 5, but I think those are going to be really quick. We're almost done with the play. There may be a chance we don't even get to the ending, but we'll have to see, because now we're just sort of rushed because the end of this 9 weeks is like right here, right? So we'll see how it goes, okay? But that's going to lead us into today's lesson. I don't know why it says lesson 20. Today is lesson 23, I believe. Focusing question is still the same. What makes love complicated? Because love is a hard thing, right? Love is never easy. It's complicated. There's a lot of obstacles and hurdles that we have to get through, right? And the content framing question for lesson 23 is what's happening in Ipecac. Anytime it says what's happening, basically means you're going to be summarizing something, right? Ipecac is a new story I'm going to introduce, and it's going to help us see how love gets very complicated, okay? So again, I guess it's right here. Lesson 23, the learning goal is we're going to summarize the relationships between the characters in Ipecac. And I may upload another discussion post, but I may just save that for tomorrow. So just hold out, see what happens. So again, y'all have always done a Notice and Wonder for a long time now, so you should be used to this. So Ipecac, I put this in today's folder. This is the reading. So in the first 2 paragraphs right here, I'm going to read it out for y'all real quick. So this is the story Ipecac by Kurt Vonnegut. So here are the first 2 paragraphs. Hell, it's about time someone told about my friend Ipecac. After all, he cost the taxpayers $776,434,927.54. A lot of money. They have a right to know about him picking up a check like that. Ipecac got a big send-off in the papers when Dr. Ormond von Gleigstad designed him for the government people. Since then, there hasn't been a peep about him. Not a peep. It isn't even any military secret about what happened to Ipecac, although the brass has been acting as though it were. The story's embarrassing, that's all. After all that money, Ipecac didn't work out the way he was supposed to. That's another thing. I want to vindicate Ipecac. Maybe he didn't do what the brass wanted him to, but that doesn't mean he wasn't noble and great and brilliant. He was all of those things. The best friend I ever had. God rest his soul. So that is the first 2 paragraphs. Vindicate I think some of y'all may have trouble with that word. Vindicate basically means make right, clear of any accusations or suspicions or any criticism. That's basically what vindicate means. So he's trying to make sure Epicac gets shown in a good light, right? So going back to the PowerPoint, it's what wonders and notices do you have about the first two paragraphs? I want you to brainstorm about that while I share some of mine. If you want to brainstorm first before you hear mine, just pause this video. But some of the notices I had is Epicac is not a person, right? Is like this big supercomputer, and that Epicac is dead because it says God rest his soul. People usually say that whenever people are dead, or I guess since he's not a person, the computer's dead. Some wonders I had is, what does Epicac stand for? Like, is it an acronym? Why is the story embarrassing? And who is the narrator? Who's the person telling this story? And why are they friends with Epicac, right? So that's some of the notices and wonders that I had about the story. It seems like a pretty interesting story, right? It's about a computer and something happened to the computer, and I'm very interested, right? So based on the first two paragraphs, what do you think the story will be about? I want you to brainstorm about that. Pause the video if you have to, but what I put down of what I think the story will be about based on the first two paragraphs, I think it'll probably be about the story of a computer, like a supercomputer, what went wrong with it, and it's probably an embarrassing story, right? Because something obviously happened because the government doesn't want to really talk about it. So I think it's going to be a story about a computer and what went wrong, right? That's pretty fair to assume that's what the story will be about, my opinion. So I want y'all to go through this reading. It's sort of a long reading. It's 7 pages, but it does go quick. So I want you to try to read that, this handout, this reading Epicac. Pause the video if you have to. And then while you're reading, I want you to think of the questions: who, what, when, and where. I want you to also annotate for descriptions of Epicac's character, right? Remember, who is any characters getting introduced, what is like what the story is about, when is the story taking place, and where is sort of the location, right? So I want you to pause the video, do that for me, but I'm also going to be answering these for you as well. So the who, there's a lot of characters that get introduced. Their narrator never gets introduced by name, but he's the one telling the story, right? He also has a love interest in this story named Pat. She's like his partner working on Epicac. Epicac obviously is also another character that gets introduced. He's basically what the story's about. The scientist, a lot of government people get introduced, but the three main people is the narrator, his love interest Pat, and Epicac, his best friend, the computer, right? What the story is about is basically just a embarrassing story about what happened to Epicac, right? The when is, it never tells you exactly when the story takes place. It's definitely in the past because all the verb form is usually in the past tense version. And also, in the beginning, he says he wants to tell you a story about exactly what's happening. Also, whenever he describes Pat, he uses the phrase, Pat wasn't my wife then, whenever he's telling the story. So eventually we can assume that narrator and the Pat get married. So this is definitely in the past. We just don't know exactly when. The where is the 4th floor of the physics building at Wyandotte College. It's in paragraph 4. It's somewhere in America, right? But they're located in a building at a college, right? And there's a lot of descriptions of Epicac's character. Obviously, from the first 2 paragraphs, the narrator describes him as noble and great and brilliant. There's some issues with Epicac, right? He fizzled. He had a lot of issues whenever Epicac was responding to some questions. Like, he would be sluggish, and there was like a sort of a stammer or an irregularity with how he responds. Okay, so Epicac definitely had some issues, but the narrator thought that those issues weren't bad, right? The narrator thinks of Ebikek as more human than a machine because of the emotions Ebikek has, right? Um, that's basically some of the answers to that. Ebikek does seem sort of like a human in how the narrator describes him. So I do want you to read this whole story, but if you're not, I could always just summarize it here. So basically, what happens in this story is Epikak is a computer, right? And the narrator works on it. And as I said, the narrator has a love interest in a partner named Pat. Pat is a mathematician, a scientist alongside the narrator. They both work on the Epikak together. And the narrator has a massive crush on Pat. And the narrator constantly proposes to Pat. But Pat never says yes because Pat wants to be wooed, right? Pat loves romance. She loves poems. She loves big romantic gestures. And the narrator says, that's just not me, right? That's not the type of person I am. I struggle finding the right words. I'm not very romantic. And then one day, the narrator gets rejected again, and he's being sad. And Epikak writes him a question. Epikak writes him, "What's wrong?" And the narrator decides to respond back. And he says, and he tells him the story about Pat getting rejected. And then the narrator describes what love is to Epikak, because Epikak's a computer, right? It's a robot. Doesn't understand the concept of love. But Epikak slowly starts getting it, understanding it. And the narrator tells Epikak that Pat wants a poem, right? She wants a big romantic poem. And Epikak doesn't know what a poem is at first, but after the narrator explains it, Epikak slowly starts understanding. And the Epikak writes a poem, writes a big romantic poem. And the narrator decides to steal it, put his name at the end, and give it to Pat the next day. After Pat reads it, she loves it. She's crying. She absolutely loves that poem. And they start dating, right? After they start dating, the narrator constantly keeps talking to Epikak and stealing the poems that Epikak writes about. Epikak doesn't know that that the narrator is stealing those poems. The narrator doesn't tell him. And then eventually one day, the narrator decides that he wants to marry Pat, right? And the narrator tells Epikak that he thinks Pat is ready for marriage, that Pat wants to get married. And Epikak says, okay, I'm ready whenever she is. So Epikak misinterprets it. Epikak thinks Pat wants to marry him because he's the one writing poems and he doesn't know that the narrator has been stealing them, right? So Epikak develops this sort of crush on Pat, and it seems like Epikak has fallen in love with Pat after hearing all the stories that the narrator has told him about Pat and what love is, right? And the narrator starts getting nervous, right? And the narrator says, whoa, Pat loves me. Pat wants to marry me, not you. And Epikak is like, why? I'm the one writing her poems. I'm smarter than every man on the world. Why does she want to marry you? The narrator explains, hey, I've been stealing your poems. Also, you're not capable of love. You're a robot. You can't marry Pat. That's just not possible. And the Epikak says, why? Why can't I? And the narrator has one simple answer. It's fate. No, it is fate. There's no changing it. It's fate that you can't marry Pat. I have to marry her. Epikak is confused by the word fate. Remember, we all know fate is something that you can't change. It's bound to happen no matter what. There's no stopping fate. And Epikak gets confused by that because he has come across a question that is unsolvable. He has been able to solve every question that he has come across except for this one question, because there is no answer to fate. Right? There's no changing it. So the Epikak is like, okay, fine, whatever. Narrator goes home for the night, goes to sleep, and he gets a call in the middle of the night saying, hey, Epikak is on fire. Epikak is broken. You need to come into the office right now. Narrator comes in to the office. Epikak is on fire. Epikak is broken. I think Epikak broke trying to solve the answer fate, and it just overheated and caught on fire. But before Epikak goes away, he writes 500 poems for the narrator to give to Pat throughout their entire lifetime in marriage. right? So that's why the narrator has a special soft spot for Ipecac, because Ipecac, before he went out, wrote 500 poems for the narrator to give to Pat, right? So that's basically the end of the poem, or not the poem, the story. Is very cute. Ipecac, he wants to make sure that the narrator and Pat has a cute marriage, has a great marriage, a happy marriage. And that's basically what's happening in the story. Hopefully you understand. Oh, sorry about that. Mic caught out. But hopefully you understand what's happening in the story. Give the story a read yourself, because it really is a really good story. But other than that, that's really it for this lesson. I'm not going to upload a discussion. I'm gonna save that for tomorrow's lesson. So just finish that discussion I uploaded yesterday or 2 days ago, I believe, and get that major test done. If you've already done both those things, then just read the story and just wait for the discussion post to be published tomorrow then. But other than that, if you have any questions, let me know. Email me, message me on Schoology, go to the question board. But other than that, that is it for this lesson, and I will see you here for the next lesson video.